Are you ready, Randy?
Mm-hmm. Hey there, welcome to Behind Breaking Bond. We're 30 minutes late today, but it really is kind of ironic in a way because we're going to talk about computer issues that have been plaguing the criminal justice system. Introduce yourself.
They were also plaguing behind the scenes of Breaking Bond today. Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services. So we were kind of left in a holding area, right?
It kind of shows how, the world that we live in is so computer generated, right? That computer issues can create a lot of problems. Joining us today is criminal defense attorney Emily DeToto. Emily DeToto was the one last week that brought to my attention the order. If you'll recall, a magistrate put out this order saying that more than 280 defendants had to be released from jail during it was a 4-day period from Thursday to Sunday. This was all due to computer issues.
Glitch was the word.
Yeah, glitch was the word. And the computer system is called JWeb, and it's overseen by Universal Services. Universal Services is kind of the Harris County entity that looks over this. One thing Emily was telling me just a few minutes ago, you've had clients that are involved in this. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, how I first came to be involved was that a client got arrested. I was out of town, so I got on my laptop and started looking up information. And for hours and hours and hours, nothing came up. So I started making calls, and I learned that the system had crashed. And eventually the client called me, and he had been there for about 42 hours without seeing a magistrate and had no charges.
And this was in the processing center,
Yes,
the
the Joint Processing Center. And so eventually someone came to him in a polo shirt, gave him a piece of paper and said, "You're free to go." And he now has a court date.
This affected, and just to clarify for everybody, for a misdemeanor, and this is a federal mandate. This is not because somebody wants to do this, but if you're arrested with a misdemeanor, you have to have probable cause within 24 hours, a felony 48 hours.
Exactly. And he was only charged with a misdemeanor, so he was there well over the 24-hour time period.
And you know what I found out too, as we kind of looked into it also, this involved, like, let's say if a police officer was out making an arrest during this 4-day period, they would be told, don't bring the person to jail.
Exactly. I'm getting calls from people that have seen the story that you broke on the news, and one woman was arrested in LaPorte. She was taken to the LaPorte City Jail and just released from the jail, not brought over to the Joint Processing Center. And then I had the misfortune of letting her know that she now has a warrant for her arrest because she was never brought before a magistrate. So it's routine, client after client. People are just getting released from the municipality where they're arrested from and not ever brought where they're supposed to be brought.
So we truly, really don't even know how many, because many people who were suspected of committing a crime were never even brought in to be processed. So the numbers obviously are going to be much larger because those right?
Yes. Yeah.
So the list that you have that's circulated in the media is not accurate.
Right. It's sort of like if you were in the way I understand it, if you were in the pipeline during this 4-day period, you could be involved in this. Like you said, there were people that they were at the scene. They were basically told it'll be a 2B or.
Exactly.
And you had a client that actually was in the jail.
Yes, he was in the Joint Processing Center, but he was never brought before a magistrate. He was just let go. He was held longer than he should have been. Luckily, he doesn't have a warrant for his arrest. He actually, is not part of that next problem that we're going to see.
Right.
But there's probably hundreds of people who now have to look over their shoulder because the DA's office said they're going to re-arrest people that they've released under this glitch.
Could people use the argument that my charge should be dismissed because I didn't have a probable cause?
Well, so when you go before a magistrate for probable cause, the DA's office reads a snippet of the facts. And the magistrate either says there's enough probable cause to go forward, or they say they deny probable cause. So there's hundreds of people that were denied their right to have maybe their case thrown out. And so if they get rearrested and then the judge in court says there's no probable cause, there's a lot of constitutional rights are being violated.
Just the mental anguish.
Right.
I think of knowing that's kind of like hanging over your head, and you're kind of like, well, what do I do? Do I wait for them to come? Do I go say, here I am, process me, let's get this, train moving?
Right.
I mean, I would just think, and I'm sure your clients would probably, and you could probably agree, that's, I don't care what side you're on, there's no sides in this. Everybody suffered because of it.
Right.
Well, yeah, and there were people that, let's say that they posted their bond. There were people that may have sat in jail for hours, if not a day or two longer than they needed.
Right. And once you're in the belly of the beast, there's a whole ball that's set in motion. Your car gets towed.
Yeah.
You don't get to go to work. You can't call into work because you probably don't know the number. Then you stand to get fired, and now you're going to lose your apartment or your house. And I mean, there's a lot of things that are in jeopardy when things
What would you advise to folks that there's a likelihood that they have a warrant out for their arrest? What advice would you give them? What should they do?
Well, the first thing they need to do is contact a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because them just showing up in the court with their hands up and saying, I'm here, take me in, that'll be of no avail.
Right.
You need to contact a lawyer who will then contact the DA's office. They'll get a time and a date certain to show up to court with a bondsman, and then they'll do what's called a walkthrough. And then they will be given their PC magistrate warnings there in court, and then they'll physically walk over to the processing center with the bonding company. They'll get fingerprinted and photographed, and then they'll get a bond. That's the cleanest way to do it.
And if somebody wanted to do that, they probably need to do it as soon as they can.
ASAP, because otherwise, if they get pulled over for speeding or doing something, that they don't intend to do, the minute a police officer sees that they have a warrant, they have their duty bound to arrest the person. And if let's say that they have a child in the car, then the child will either get taken into CPS custody, or they'll have to call.
Well, they got their dog or something,
Exactly,
yeah.
Right, so.
Which, we had no idea this was happening. None of us, I never even heard of this J-Web.
Me either, no.
I've never heard any of this terminology that we're now learning right now. But to me, what's more disturbing was this isn't like an anomaly.
Right.
This isn't like unusual. Evidently, this has been an ongoing issue
For like a year and a half.
A year and a half. This is at least the fourth or the fifth, depending on who you're talking. And it's still going on right now. I'm going to read you. If you go to the district clerk's website and you pull it up right here, here is what it says. We are still experiencing issues with background checks and criminal activities tab due to ongoing issues with the Harris County Universal Services failure that occurred the week of March 25th.
Wow.
So you can't even, so for people that are depending on background checks for, let's say, jobs,
Right.
Yeah.
everything is
Right.
at a standstill right now. It's like a traffic jam where everybody stops and we don't know how to proceed because it keeps on happening. And we're like, and I'm sitting there watching all this go on, and I can sense the frustration because we're frustrated here from all different sides of this now. But I've yet to hear someone come forward and say, yeah, we get it, there's a problem. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into this mode of kind of a disaster preparation.
Right.
Well, and two, in his statement, General Major Noriega, who runs Universal Services, in a statement, he really downplayed it. He made it out like it lasted for a few hours, did not even acknowledge that this has happened in the past. And you brought up a really good point that it's like every single arm of criminal justice is affected.
Right.
The DA's office,
Right.
the bar,
Right.
public defenders, the jail. I mean, without this thing working correctly, things either come to a grinding halt or it slows everything down.
Right, exactly. And we talked about the fact that there's some people who might have been charged with violent offenses that were just let go.
Yeah.
And they were not given no contact conditions.
Right.
Or some people that were booked in, let's say on a misdemeanor, who might have actually been on bond
Right.
for another offense.
Right, yeah.
Or could have been wearing an ankle. We don't know any of this stuff. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, and you and I have been doing this a long time, and, you know, I hate to be the, you know, predicting futures, but we all know more than likely that, you know, whether it's months from now, weeks from now, or even years from now, something's going to come back to haunt us.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
It
Yeah.
will happen.
yes.
But the thing is, I mean, I was a prosecutor in the 90s under Johnny Holmes, and this was when we had rotary phones.
Right,
The
yeah,
internet wasn't even born,
yeah,
and we managed just fine.
yeah.
You know?
Well, somebody was telling me that, and it may have been the public defender, that you could still, in everything by law now, it all has to be electronic, right? Like all the court documents and
Right.
everything has to be accessible through the computer.
Yeah.
But there are still instances where a criminal charge could start on paper,
Right.
right? I mean, it's,
Well, I mean, for example, in juvenile court, because juveniles have the right to privacy, a lot of things are done by paper. They're
Right.
old school. Motions have to be filed that way. So it's not out of the ordinary for us to go back to that system.
yeah,
I'm a cableman lawyer. I personally prefer paper.
me too. I'm a
It's old
Pen and
school.
paper guy.
I like maps, dial phones, typewriters, a VHS player,
I'm
plug
with
it in,
you.
and you hit play.
I'm
And
with
it's
you.
right,
simple.
yes,
Exactly.
Life
Yes.
was simple back then. You didn't have
I'm
to do
with you.
this. But this came out today.
yes, uh-huh,
This came out today, and this was signed by some major, you know, major power players who were involved
You
in
know,
the
the
system.
seals on it.
Yes.
you're right, look at all
I mean,
that.
look at that. I've never seen this before. And this was sent to the Major General Rick Noriega in charge of Univer. This is from the district clerk, the district attorney, the sheriff, the courts administrator, and the county court of law court administrator. And it's addressed to pretty much everybody on who, and they're bringing these concerns. So, you know, again, I'm just kind of dumbfounded that this had been going on.
It says 18 months. in
Yeah.
there.
And
It
it's
said it's been
yeah,
going on. for
Going
18
on,
months.
and we're just either, I really just shudder to think, what would have happened if we hadn't enough?
Right?
Right.
What would have happened?
You're the one that really brought it to light. You were like, hey, you want to see this? Look at this email, right? I mean,
I know.
if you would not have told me a week ago
Right.
that this, if you didn't have that judge's order, then we would still be,
No one would
we would know, right?
No one would know.
And there's obviously been instances in the past where people that needed to be out of jail were sitting there longer than they needed to be.
Right.
And on the flip side of that, people that needed to be in jail got to walk out.
Exactly. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I mean, it's, nobody wins in this
I mean, this
situation.
line right here, there was no backup for the J-Web replication scheme, which appears to be the primary reason for the prolonged disruption. This was preventable, and it needs an immediate solution. Yeah, no kidding, Sherlock.
I mean, apparently there's only like very few people within Universal Services even understand the complexity of it and how you, if you have to do maintenance or if you have to bring it down, how you can successfully get it back and running like it's supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, this is priority one to this is, you know, to use the old Star Trek analogy, this was red alert, get everybody on gear and start, you know, running and preparing for what might happen. And that didn't happen here.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen until, you know, we got a wind of it. I remember when I looked at it, when you sent it, and I was like, okay, so what does this exactly mean? Because I've never heard of J-Web before, so it took me a little bit to catch on what this meant. And immediately to me, red flags went up No doubt, because I knew the ramifications of this could be monumental.
It's apparently like some $20 million program that took a while. I mean, to build it or whatever took many, many years. And I think it actually went into effect like in 2019, something like that.
It has to be new because I've never.
We used to call them gyms. Remember the gyms?
Yeah.
Gyms. Everybody knew gyms, and we never seemed to have a problem with gyms, did we?
Right.
Well,
And that-
yeah.
Now it's J-Web and it's problematic.
Yes.
So,
Exactly.
And again, the whole purpose of it, it brings everything together, right? It's like if the magistrate that's sitting there through J-Web is basically seeing everything.
Right.
And it kind of brings everybody on
It's like
the
one,
same page.
right, one big portal that all the law enforcement agencies can communicate on.
Right.
And that glitched out.
Yeah. And it's even used, to my understanding, to like let the jail know, okay, these are the defendants that are going to be on the 9 o'clock docket.
Right.
These are the defendants that you bring in for that.
Right.
Well, if it's not working right,
Right.
that can put the docket back hours because they don't know who to bring
Right.
or when to bring them.
Right, and that's why there was hundreds of people, from what I hear, that were just being detained in the underground tunnels because they didn't have any charges yet to be booked on. I mean, imagine how unfair that is.
Right.
You know, you've been arrested, you've been snatched out of society, now you're just sitting in a tunnel, you don't know what you're accused of.
Right.
I mean, under our constitutional laws, you're entitled to notice.
Of course, yeah, everybody should have a probable cause hearing where you hear a judge, a magistrate say out loud,
Right,
well, we think you did this crime because there's this, and this.
right,
You're not being convicted, but at least it's basically saying there's enough right here for you to go to trial.
exactly. And there's hundreds of people just sitting there not understanding why they were there. And then people that were released not knowing what they are or are not supposed to do when they're on bond. And then there's people who are, victims of crimes who are living in fear because the person has been released without any orders of not
one
contacting
thing
them.
that was kind of downplayed, you remember when we got a list of some of those that were released and everybody's saying, well, they're nonviolent misdemeanors. And we looked at them, I'd say over half were DWIs.
Right.
And we know what happened this weekend where someone who was intoxicated and is now charged with driving drunk and then killing Precinct Constable 7, Chavis as well. DWIs are serious.
They are.
I'm not downplaying, and I don't like how it gets downplayed by this.
And did you notice too, on that list, there were maybe 3 or 4 that it would say second DWI or on bond for DWI. And from what I learned later, that was just from like the arresting officer, the officer at the scene was able to run them and get that much information, and then that was it.
Notwithstanding if they had prior criminal history,
Right.
other than a prior DWI.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm a criminal defense attorney, so I don't want my brethren to think that I'm, a turncoat here, but I'm
Right.
also a mother of 2 children. I am a business owner, I'm a homeowner, and I've been a victim of crime.
Yeah.
And so if the system's gonna work, it has to
And
be
it
done
should work for
properly.
everybody,
Yeah.
including those who are charged with crime.
Exactly.
And nobody, and I know you will agree with this too, Andy, nobody wants to see somebody in jail that's not supposed to be or doesn't need to be
The
there.
only one I would make the exception for is you.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's gotta be an exception. I got one thing, because I know we're gonna, and
God.
this is it, last night, I'm a big college hoops fan, and I gotta say this, look, go Jayhawks, Rock Chalk Jayhawks.
Rock Chalk
Congratulations to the University of Kansas Jayhawks for the national collegiate champion. And yeah, I am a proud owner of the Kansas Jayhawks t-shirt, which needless to say and sadly fit me much better a few years ago than it does right now.
I like your peacock.
So if you want to send me a brand new Kansas Jayhawks, you know how to find it.
Did it shrink? Is that why?
The size medium. Where's this medium?
No, it wouldn't. Something. No comment.
Right. Hey, thank you all so much for watching. Next
What do we got
Tuesday,
tonight?
we have it. Yes, we have a very, very interesting one that you'll definitely want to tune in tonight for. Tonight at 9, tonight's breaking bond report, and join us next Tuesday at 3. Thank you so much.
Or
We appreciate
3:30.
it. 3 o'clock.